Diving into the oldest surviving epic poem in the entire English language. It's a brutal, beautiful story that, believe it or not, is the foundation for so much of the literature we read today. We're talking, of course, about Beowulf.
And look, let's just get right to the big question, because it's a fair one. I mean, we're talking about a monster story that's over 1,000 years old, so why should you care? Why do we still study it? Why does it still matter so much?
Well, the answer is actually pretty simple, but it's huge. See, Beowulf isn't just another old story. It's literally the starting point. It is the bedrock of the entire English literary tradition. It gives us this incredibly rare window into the world of the Anglo-Saxons. So let's talk about this ancient epic's importance. To really get what makes this poem tick, we got to go back in time. And I mean way, way back. Let's set the stage and figure out where this incredible story even came from.
Okay, just wrap your head around this for a second. The poem itself was probably created sometime in the 8th century, but for hundreds of years, it wasn't a book you could just pick up and read. Nope, it was a song, a story passed down from person to person, until it was finally written down around the 10th century. We don't even know who the author was, and that single, fragile manuscript that survived, it's now one of the greatest treasures in the British Library.
So really try to picture this. Before it was ever written down, Beowulf was a performance. You'd be in this huge, smoky mead hall, right? Surrounded by warriors, fire crackling, and a professional poet, a scop, would stand up and recite this entire epic from memory, maybe with a harp playing in the background. This wasn't just entertainment. It was their history class, their news, their culture, all rolled into one incredible night.
All right, let's get into the story itself. The tale of 3 battles. The entire epic is basically built around this one legendary hero, a warrior from Geatland named Beowulf, and the 3 massive fights that define his entire life. The whole poem is structured around these 3 major showdowns. You've got the fight with Grendel, then the battle in his mother's lair, and finally the last stand against the dragon. Each fight gets bigger and more dangerous, and each one tells us something really important about what it meant to be a hero back then. So first up is the monster Grendel. This creature has been absolutely terrorizing the great mead hall of the Danish king Hrothgar. So Beowulf, hearing about this, sails over to help. And get this, in this incredible show of honor, he decides to fight the monster with his bare hands, because Grendel doesn't use any weapons. And he wins! He wins by literally tearing Grendel's arm right off his body.
But, the victory party doesn't last long. Grendel's mother shows up, totally enraged and out for revenge. This time Beowulf has to go on the offensive. He has to hunt her down, diving deep into this creepy underwater cave. It's a really desperate fight, and the only reason he survives is because he finds a magical giant forged sword just lying there in her lair. Then the story jumps forward like 50 years. Beowulf is an old man now, a respected king back in his own land. But of course, a dragon awakens and starts torching his kingdom. Even though he's old, Beowulf knows it's his duty to fight it. And he does. He kills the dragon, but he's fatally wounded in the process. He dies as the ultimate hero, having sacrificed his own life to save his people. All right, let's talk about decoding Anglo-Saxon values. Because this is so important. Beowulf is way more than just a cool monster story. It's basically a cultural blueprint. If you look closely at the characters and the fights, you start to see what these people truly believed in. And right at the center of their whole worldview was this concept called word. You can think of word as their version of fate or destiny. It was this powerful, totally unavoidable force that they believed decided everything. When you were born, how you lived, and when you would die. And you can feel its presence all through the poem. And here's what makes the poem so fascinating, really. It captures a culture that's literally in the middle of a huge change. You have these old pagan warrior beliefs like word and this intense desire for fame and glory in battle. But they're all mixed in with these newer Christian ideas about the power of a single God and the importance of things like humility and morality.
Their entire social structure was basically built on this one idea called comitatus. It was a pact, a bond of absolute loyalty. A king took care of his warriors, he gave them gold, swords, a place to live, and in return, those warriors owed him everything. We're talking unwavering loyalty to fight for him and, if necessary, die for him. That bond was the glue that held their whole world together.
Okay, now let's get into the poet's secret language, because how this story is told is just as awesome as the story itself. The poet, whoever they were, used some amazing literary tricks that make the original Old English just sing.
So, you know how most poems you think of rhyme, like cat, hat, bat? Well, throw that idea out the window. Anglo-Saxon poetry used something called alliterative verse. This means the lines are connected by repeating the same sound at the beginning of words. It creates this really punchy, rhythmic, powerful sound when you hear it spoken out loud.
They also came up with these super creative, almost riddle-like metaphors. For example, instead of just saying the sea, the poet calls it the whale road. So what do you think that is? It's like a mini riddle, right?
It's the sea, obviously. This kind of clever two-word metaphor is called a kenning. It's a compound phrase that creates this really vivid image. Another great one from the poem is ring giver. Who do you think that is? It's the king, because he was the one who handed out treasure rings to his loyal warriors.
So let's wrap this all up and talk about Beowulf's enduring legacy. When you put it all together, why has this story about a warrior from ancient Scandinavia stuck around for over a millennium? What did it leave behind?
Okay, if you need the key takeaways, here they are. First, it is the foundational text of all English literature. It's our starting point. Second, it gives us the classic model for an epic hero and their values. Third, it's this amazing snapshot of a culture in transition, moving from pagan to Christian beliefs. And finally, it's just a masterclass in poetic style with its alliteration and kennings. But really, beyond all the academic stuff, the reason Beowulf is still with us is because it tackles themes that are just human, timeless. It's a really deep reflection on courage, on what it means to be a leader, on our own mortality, and on that universal human desire to be remembered for something great.
And that really leaves us with one final question to chew on. Beowulf's life makes it pretty clear that a hero has to be courageous. But his death against the dragon, poses a much bigger question. Does true heroism require more than just courage? Does it also demand sacrifice?